Hello, and welcome to Miss Phelan's video about eclipses. So you may be familiar with an eclipse because you may have seen one either at night or during the day on the sun. We had the major eclipse in the US a few years ago, and it was a really exciting time because everyone wanted to go outside and watch the eclipse. There are two types of eclipses. The first is called a lunar eclipse, and that's when a shadow passes over the moon and blocks the moon. Remember, the word luna means moon. So a lunar eclipse is when a shadow passes over the moon and blocks the light from the moon. The second type of eclipse is called a solar eclipse. The word sol means sun. So a solar eclipse is when the moon blocks the light from the sun. The moon passes in front of the sun. Let's look at these in more detail. So to start, it's important for us to just think about what an eclipse is in general. An eclipse occurs when the sun's light is blocked from either Earth or the moon. One object blocks the light and creates a shadow on the other object. So let's look at a solar eclipse. So in a solar eclipse, you have the sun, the moon, and the earth in that order. The moon is in between the sun and the earth. Okay, and so what happens in a solar eclipse is the light from the sun tries to reach the earth, but the moon is in the way. And the moon has a shadow, just like you have a shadow, or a tree outside has a shadow. The moon has a shadow, and so when the moon passes in between the sun and the earth, the moon's shadow covers up a part of the earth. So, for our notes, for a solar eclipse happens when the sun is blocked by the moon. And the moon's shadow falls on Earth. During a solar eclipse, the moon passes in front of the sun. And because the moon is passing in between the sun and the earth, a solar eclipse can only happen during a new moon phase. Okay, that's the only time that the moon is in the correct position to be directly in between the sun and the earth. So this happens during a new moon phase, and if you also notice, it happens when the side of the earth that receives the eclipse is facing the sun. So a solar eclipse happens during the daytime. A solar eclipse can only happen during the day. So let's go ahead and look at our moon diagram. We just said that a solar eclipse can happen at the new moon phase. And so let's go ahead and highlight the objects that are involved in a solar eclipse. So we have the sun, we have the moon in the new moon position, and of course we have the earth. So a solar eclipse, again, can only happen when the moon is in this phase right here. To review solar eclipses, let's go ahead and fill in this chart to summarize. A solar eclipse happens during a new moon phase. It happens during the day. And the order of objects that are involved goes like this. We have the sun, we have the moon, and then we have the earth. So it's very important to know the order of these objects. Again, in a solar eclipse, we have the sun, the moon, and then the earth. So let's go ahead and compare that with a lunar eclipse. If you look at a picture for lunar eclipse, okay, you can see in the picture here that the order is a little different. So in a lunar eclipse, we have the sun, the earth, and then the moon. And so in a lunar eclipse, the earth passes in between the sun and the moon. Again, just like the moon has a shadow, just like the trees outside have a shadow, the earth has a shadow. And so during a lunar eclipse, the earth's shadow falls directly on the moon, covering the sun's light and preventing it from reaching the moon. So you have the earth's shadow covering the moon. For our notes, in a lunar eclipse, the moon is blocked by the Earth's shadow. Earth blocks the sun's rays from reaching the moon to light it up. During a lunar eclipse, the moon passes into Earth's shadow. And in order for this to happen, the moon has to be in a particular position, and so this can only happen during the full moon phase. So a lunar eclipse can only happen during a full moon. And because it's a full moon and it's a lunar eclipse can only happen during the nighttime. You cannot see a lunar eclipse during the day. So again, let's highlight the objects that are important in a lunar eclipse and their positions in space. So again, we have the sun, then we have the earth, and then we have the moon in the full moon position. So we have the sun, the earth, and then the moon. Let's go ahead and summarize a lunar eclipse. In a lunar eclipse, the moon is in the full moon phase. A lunar eclipse happens at night. And the order of important objects, in this case, a lunar eclipse, is sun, earth, and then the moon. And again, it's important to know the order of these objects here.